Welcome back to another FPL video. Today I'm talking about the transfer tips for Double Game Week 7. On screen you can see Draft Hound. There is a link in the description below. I will be using this and other tools for my team selection video to discuss some transfers. I am considering a -4 hit, so stay tuned for that team selection video. And today we're talking about 10 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. If there are any other players I haven't covered, then be sure to let me know your thoughts on those players down in the comment section below. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. The first buy of this video is Kieran Trippier, and he is off the back of a mega return. 18 points, 3 assists, a clean sheet, an 8-0 victory against Sheffield United. And in my personal opinion, it's mainly to do with how poor Sheffield United were. Of course, Newcastle were brilliant. They deserve credit, but Sheffield United were extremely poor. And I wouldn't expect these sorts of returns every single week, even against the likes of Burnley at home, Crystal Palace, and Wolves away over the next 4 game weeks. But Kieran Trippier is a buy. Last week, I talked about buying Sven Botman and Newcastle defenders in general. And Sven Botman remains my preference over Kieran Trippier simply because it allows you to go for Heung-min Son or Mohamed Salah in the midfield potentially. And with Kieran Trippier, it's much more difficult to do so. And I think a double up in Newcastle defence is viable, but it's not essential. And I wouldn't triple up on the Magpies defensively. He has gone up to 6.6 million, Kieran Trippier. His ownership is now over 35%, so it is a template pick. He got 3 assists, all of them coming against Sheffield United. Before that, his underlying numbers, the goal output was very poor, especially by his lofty standards. And the only stat that was looking very promising up until Game Week 5 was the key passes or chances created, whatever you want to call that. But Kieran Trippier is a buy despite being 6.6 million. But those fixtures for Newcastle over the next 5 are good, and even up until the next 10 game weeks, they are very solid. So if you're wildcarding or using a free transfer, I think Kieran Trippier is a buy. Next up is Jarrod Bowen, who was a skip around game week 3 or 4. It was several weeks ago now, but once the fixtures have cleared up, I think Jarrod Bowen is going to be a very good option in the heart of the midfield, and he has enjoyed a very solid start to the season. And I actually talked about skipping him ahead of Luton Town away, where he got a return, a 7-pointer, but afterwards he wasn't maybe too great. Still managed to return against Liverpool though, despite being flagged with an illness. I was talking about this in the deadline stream. I expected him to be available, and of course he's always going to be a threat, even against the biggest and best clubs. He is 7.1 million. His ownership is just shy of 10%. The goals and assists are very impressive in just 6 appearances, 4 goals and 1 assist, and also the underlying numbers. His XGI is 3.95, and he's also got 39 FPL points already. So Jarrod Bowen is a very solid pick. He does face Newcastle, Aston Villa and Brentford over the next 5, but I think Bowen can do well in every single one of these games. He is fixture proof, and his XG itself is almost 3. The expected assist is over 1, and all these underlying numbers point towards sustainability, and the long-term fixtures for West Ham United are very impressive. Now you may be asking, what about Jarrod Bowen versus James Ward-Prowse? Who would you go for? I'd probably pick Jarrod Bowen. It's a very close call. Bowen is a bit more explosive. James Ward-Prowse is arguably more consistent, but overall I think Bowen will probably outscore him, especially over the next 5 to 10 game weeks. But it's very close to call between those two. They are definitely the 2 best West Ham assets alongside Areola in goal. So if you're ever to go for a triple up in the Irons, it would be those 3, and I think Jarrod Bowen is arguably their #1 pick. It's no secret that Carlton Morris is a buy simply because of his double in Game Week 7, which is very impressive, by the way. Everton away and Burnley at home, and even Nottingham Forest away isn't too bad of a fixture in Game Week 9. But overall, the games aren't too great after Double Game Week 7, and Carlton Morris is really just a budget enabler who can do very well in this Double Game Week. I am anticipating 1 goal and maybe some bonus points, and that'd be a very solid return from your forward. But I have to make this very clear. I would not sell certain strikers, especially Callum Wilson, Alvarez, Watkins, and a few others like that for Carlton Morris. Despite his double game week, I wouldn't make such a move, especially if it's for a -4 hit. But if you're selling Jackson or maybe an underperforming striker, even Gabriel Jesus, I would consider that sort of move. But I would be very careful when you're looking to buy Morris, because it ultimately depends who you're selling. But his underlying numbers are decent. His XG is 2.24. He's got 2 goals and 1 assist. His FPL points is 26 so far, so not too shabby. He's on penalties, and I think he'll do well in Double Game Week 7. But beyond this Double Game Week, I'd be looking to sell Morris, so it's really just a 1 game week punt. We are now onto the holds, and Saliba is the first one up, and he does face Man City, Chelsea and Newcastle over the next 5, but for Bournemouth away, I would not be selling Saliba, especially if some people are clamouring towards Newcastle defenders. That's understandable. Long term, that's a good move, but I wouldn't sell Saliba away to Bournemouth. I think the Cherries could cause Arsenal some problems, but last season, Saliba scored in a 3-0 victory for Arsenal, and whilst I don't anticipate that same level of performance and maybe comfort, I still think Arsenal have a good chance of a clean sheet, and I think Saliba is a very good option. What isn't too good, however, with the Frenchman is the underlying numbers. His XG is around 0.01 and his XGI is 0.1 overall, but what he's really good at is the clean sheets away from home and bonus points, and that's where Saliba shines. He's 5.2 million, and I wouldn't mind him on a wild card where you start him against Bournemouth, bench him against Man City, and then start him against Chelsea and Sheffield United. So I think he's still a good option on the wild card and to hold long term. But ultimately, even if you decide to sell him around game week 8 or 9, that's all well and good, but don't sell him ahead of Bournemouth in double game week 7. Mitoma was benched against Bournemouth, but that didn't stop him from producing a 14-pointer. I was discussing this with viewers in the live stream. I would have kept Mitoma for Bournemouth, but there was always that possibility of a benching, and once that happened, you fear the worst and you don't really expect him to get too many points, but he still managed to do so. He's got 3 goals and 3 assists so far this season. He remains a template pick. His ownership is actually going up to around 42%, and whilst I wouldn't buy him right now, and I think the best time to buy Mitoma or any Brighton asset is game week 10, I still think he's worth holding. Now, Aston Villa is a bit of a bogey team for the Seagulls, but Mitoma can do well in that fixture, and even Liverpool at home. The only game where I'd be very happy to bench Mitoma is against Man City away, and even in such a game, Mitoma is capable of some brilliance, but I still think Man City is a benchable fixture for Mitoma and any Brighton asset. His XGI is 4.33, and he's got the same amount of points as Jarrod Bowen with 39. The underlying numbers are also very good in terms of shots in the box. He's got 10, 11 shots overall. His XG is 2.24. The expected assist is also over 2, and the big chances is 4, and all these numbers are really impressive. Even key passes with 14. So I think Mitoma is worth holding, and I don't see too many viable alternatives around his price. Of course, you could mention Diaby, Ward-Prowse and Jarrod Bowen, but by game week 10 all the way until game week 16, I think Mitoma is a very good option, and I would have him over Mbeumo at this moment in time. Chilwell has gone from hero to villain. He started off as a good FPL option from game week 1, but things have gone downhill ever since. In the last 2 game weeks, he was benched, he comes on and gets a yellow card to produce back-to-back 0 pointers. The underlying numbers are still very good. His XGI is 2.25, and considering he's only started 4 games, that's very impressive for a defender. But if he doesn't start games, then quite frankly, it's just a very easy sell for Ben Chilwell. He does face Fulham away and Burnley away in the next 2. Some very good fixtures on paper, but the fixtures after that are extremely poor for Chelsea, and they embark on a very torrid run where Chelsea could be in massive trouble and they need to get some points on the board as soon as possible. Chilwell will become a good option once again if he gets back into the side. He is mainly playing as a left winger with Mauricio Pochettino, but overall Ben Chilwell is a sell, and the comments by Mauricio Pochettino today aren't encouraging me at all. So what he basically said, talking about Colwill, Mudryk and Ben Chilwell, he said, "I'm happy with Levi Colwill and the way he is playing. He's providing the team with a very good balance. Chilwell has the possibility to play tomorrow, which is in the Carabao Cup, and we were using him maybe not in his best position because he was a winger. That is why when we start to play with Misha, our thought was to keep Levi in that position." So my prediction here is for Chilwell obviously to play in the Carabao Cup, as Pochettino said, but he will be benched in double game week 7 against Fulham. And quite frankly, I'm just sick and tired of these yellow cards off the bench and all these benchings overall. So Ben Chilwell could become a good option in the future, but right now he is a sell. Sterling is also a sell. He's gone down in price to 7.1 million. Chilwell also went down in price recently too. But in terms of prioritising these Chelsea players, I would sell Jackson first, then Chilwell, then Sterling. Jackson's obviously suspended in the next game week. Chilwell is not even playing, and Sterling has been very frustrating, and he'll continue to frustrate for the foreseeable future. The next 2 game weeks look really good on paper, Fulham away and Burnley away, and at least Sterling is playing, and he's been fairly unlucky against Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, but Chelsea don't have enough quality in those forward areas, and Sterling's finishing has always been a massive issue. At Man City, he would still score goals and get a lot of goal contributions because Man City creates so many chances. It is a bit different at Chelsea, where they have been creating a fair few number of chances, but it's not to the same level as Man City, and the quality of players surrounding Sterling are vastly inferior. So I think Sterling is still worth selling. But I do concede that Burnley away is a really good chance for him to get some goal contributions, and that's where those that hold him could be massively rewarded. But I see Fulham as a bit of a tougher game, low scoring. Burnley is the one where Sterling could go massive, and then ultimately you can sell him ahead of Arsenal at home in game week 9. And in terms of the underlying numbers, they're very impressive. His XGI is 3.69. He's got 2 goals and 1 assist, all of them coming against Luton Town, and he's got 29 FPL points overall. So he is explosive. On his day, he's absolutely brilliant, but he's going to be very inconsistent, blank more often than not, and Chelsea players are just not worth keeping right now. Wissa started this season on fire in the first 2 game weeks, but things have gone downhill massively since then, and you could even say the same thing about Mbeumo, but I'd rather keep Mbeumo over Wissa right now, especially with Mbeumo being on penalties and our position, so an extra point for scoring a goal and for keeping a clean sheet. But ultimately, you're looking at these Brentford assets and they're not looking too promising. The injuries to Ben Mee and Rico Henry are massive blows. Not having Ivan Toney until January is also a massive problem, and David Raya, of course, was really good for them in goal. So Brentford have struggled in recent weeks. They've only lost 1 game, but the manner of that defeat against Everton at home was quite worrying, and Wissa could do well in some of these fixtures, especially Burnley at home and Nottingham Forest away, but I still think it's worth selling him long term, even to Carlton Morris for 1 game week, or Alvarez/Watkins, Callum Wilson. You've got a few alternatives, even Awani. So our Wissa isn't a bad pick, and he continues to be a decent option overall. I still think it's worth offloading him to better strikers from other teams. And you also look at a few other factors like Schade, who could come in for Wissa in certain games like Man United away or Chelsea away, as Brentford go to that back 3 formation in those bigger games. That could also be a massive issue. And Wissa's XG has fallen off a cliff. In the first 2 game weeks, it was already around 1.9. Ever since, he's only accumulated around 0.4 XG, so really worrying numbers and signs for Brentford. I still think they have a decent team and they could massively improve from now on, but ultimately I think Wissa is a sell. We are now in the final section, and I think Nathan Ake is a skip. Now, going for a Man City defender is still not a bad option, despite their poor fixtures from game weeks 8 to 14. But Nathan Ake has only started 3 out of a possible 6 Premier League games, and whilst some of this is because of injury and a few other issues he's had, I still think Nathan Ake isn't safe. And if you want a nailed-on Man City defender, it looks like Kyle Walker or Akanji are your best bets. You could even say Ruben Dias, but he is even more expensive, and I'm not sure I'd want to spend that much money on a defender that could still be rotated. Of course, it's not a massive difference between him, Ake, Akanji, and Walker in terms of price, but I think 5.5, 5.6 million is a bit too steep for my liking, and Edison in goal doesn't have a high ceiling at all. So whilst Ake has scored a goal already, he's got a bit of bonus points potential. 19 FPL points in just 3 starts is pretty decent. His XGI is 0.69. I still think Nathan Ake is worth skipping, and I'd go elsewhere, even if it's for another Man City defender. Go for Kyle Walker or Akanji. The final player we're discussing today is Szoboszlai, who produced a massive return in a 3-0 victory against Aston Villa several weeks ago, but I don't really trust him as an FPL option just yet. And when the fixtures turn for Liverpool around game week 9 onwards, you could make a case for going for 2 or 3 Liverpool players, but I don't think Szoboszlai would be in my thinking just yet. He's kind of a wait and see. I think he's been a great signing for Liverpool. He's adding a lot to that midfield alongside McAllister, but as an FPL option, I don't necessarily trust him. Of course, that volley against Aston Villa was very well taken, but do I see a sustainability in terms of returns? Not really. His XGI is 1.45. He's got 1 goal and 1 assist, 23 points overall, which is not too bad, but I think he is worth skipping. And if you want to go for Liverpool players, Salah is always going to be the standout. Then you're looking at Darwin Núñez or Diaz as your second attacker, and then maybe 1 defender or Alisson in goal to cover Liverpool defensively. But I don't think Szoboszlai is one of the best Liverpool assets in FPL. So that's it. We've discussed 10 players today to buy, hold, sell and skip If you disagree with any of them, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. And if there are any other players you want my thoughts on, or maybe the thoughts of the community as well, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to a 300 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 21,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanLCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, and the FPL League. All of the links are there, even Draft Town, which I showed at the beginning of this video. And if you become a patron or a channel member, you get exclusive early access to all of my videos, as well as being featured on my channel page, and many more perks such as exclusive badges and emojis to use in my live streams and videos. Thank you very much for all your support. It's massively appreciated as always, and I'll see you next time.